The independents, the event cinema companies, like there's more opportunity and space in the market than ever before. And everyone's trying to figure out how to optimize and monetize that.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Uria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, Rebecca Pauley interviews Five Nights at Freddy's 2 director Emma Tammi. That's coming up in the second half of this episode. And we've also got an interview with our friends Alan Christensen and Mark Waterston from Qube Cinema joining us to talk about the latest technologies helping you, the exhibitor, bringing new titles to cinemas and helping distributors get their movies to as many theaters as possible. A vital, vital resource for those folks in the distribution and exhibition sectors of this business to work with a company like Qube. That is coming up in the sponsored segment of this episode. But before we get there, we've got a lot of updates from the Zootopia 2 opening weekend over Thanksgiving week. And we've also got updates on everything opening up in theaters in the month of December. Joining us here on our news panel are our colleagues and co-hosts, Rebecca Pauley and Chad Kennerk from Box Office Pro. Guys, welcome back. I hope Thanksgiving was nice and restful. And I got to open the way we always do. Chad, what was your Thanksgiving movie?
Hamnet, which is also my number one of the year, at least so far. Chloe Zhao's film. I've loved Chloe Zhao's work, and I should preface it by saying that it deals in theater history, and so that's very much a movie.
It's your jam.
For me. Yeah. But at the same time, you don't really have to know anything about Shakespeare or any of that history to enjoy it. It's a really cinematic, theatrical film. I would encourage everyone to see it in a theater if you can.
It's great to hear that Chloe Zhao is back to making the type of movies that she's known for making, that she's won Academy Awards for making. She did that really god-awful Marvel movie a couple of years back.
She got paid. God
yeah,
bless.
Good for her. You know, I hope that helped produce this project and many more, or at least got her in a more comfortable life situation to do so. And, you know, the movie that I saw over the weekend also reminded me of that, like, Marvel movie jail that some creatives got caught up in. Now, the first time I saw Elizabeth Olsen in a movie was around a decade ago. I don't know if you guys ever saw Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene.
Yeah, the cult movie, right? That was a director yeah.
Absolutely good. I mean, astonishing performance from her. I mean, really, really one of the better quote unquote finds I've had of going into a movie blind and walking out just completely enamored by what I saw. And I was so excited to see Elizabeth Olsen's career sort of flourish in this sort of challenging role in very interesting movies like that. And then she's some sort of witch lady for the next decade and a half. And I just, you know, good for them. I hope it creates the generational wealth that we all aspire to have. But I think we missed out creatively on some projects. Now, that streak ended this last weekend because I went to go catch the new movie Eternity.
Yeah,
this romantic comedy with Elizabeth Olsen and Miles Teller.
Yeah, I was. How was that? Because I watched it. It looks like a little bit too, I don't know, cute to be my thing necessarily. But yeah, I haven't really seen a whole bunch of marketing for it at all.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a quiet release over Thanksgiving weekend, just because it got completely overshadowed by the Wicked train and the Zootopia 2 train. Totally get it. But man, if you can make the time out to see this in a movie theater, it's the sort of high concept romantic comedy, mass audience crowd pleaser that you used to see a lot more in the 1990s and early 2000s. It's a movie from another time. And it's a really good high concept in the sense of like, hey, what does the afterlife look like? And what would an afterlife bureaucracy look like? And what sort of emotional issues can arise, especially from folks that have two marriages, finding themselves in the afterlife with both spouses. If you give the movie room to work, I think you're going to walk out of it very entertained. I went to the Alamo Drafthouse in Yonkers with my wife to catch it. And we just walked out absolutely delighted by it. Now, Rebecca, I know it's been tough for you to get out of the house with this weather, but have you been able to catch anything?
Yeah, I caught up with Surratt, which Daniel, is that still, where does that rank on your like top 10 list as we speak now? Obviously you're catching up as we all are, but it was your recommendation that that got me to watch it and that kept me going with it.
You also had my experience. So for our listeners, I catched a screening of Surratt, the Franco-Spanish co-production that premiered at Cannes earlier this year. Now, the only reason I went to see Surratt at the New York Film Festival in October was because my good friend and our colleague, Sperling Reich, suggested that I see it after he caught it at Cannes, and he said that he hated the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 2 hours after watching it, he was like, oh, that's pretty good.
I can't stop. Yeah, I was during the and I don't want to spoil kind of the last big quote unquote set piece of the movie. I was there like looking between my hands, like, why are they doing this to me? This is just so like, it's a troll move from a filmmaker in a way that I that I respect. But if you hadn't warned me, that you may, it's not a spoiler really to say, because that's how the movie starts, that for extended periods of the time, you're watching people high on drugs rave, which is not entertaining at all if you're not also high on drugs at rave.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for context, Surratt, this is a film where a father and his son, a young son, and their dog go out to a rave in the middle of the desert looking for their missing daughter. And then after that, we get into spoiler territory. And this is not a movie you want spoiled. This is not a movie you're going to sit through at home. Because like Sperling, when he saw it at Cannes, when I saw it at the New York Film Festival, I hated it more every 15 minutes. I kept on looking at my watch thinking, should I just go home early? There's a good taco truck outside of Lincoln Center that I could hit up on the way home if I leave early. I was convincing myself to stay. And the only reason I stayed is because Sperling told me to.
Mm-hmm.
And like Sperling, on the subway ride back, I was like, hey,
I've never seen anything like that before. Like it was really cool. And yeah, we've I know you have thoughts on the release strategy. It's coming out from Neon, sort of awards qualifying, and then
it's an awards qualifying run right now, which is why we're talking about it. But the real release will happen in 2026. Now, I am a firm believer that an awards qualifying run isn't enough for me to consider your film to be a release from that year.
Yeah,
so I will
just
break convention
hairs
from every other critics group and just say, hey, once it's released seriously with a real marketing campaign behind it, it's part of that year. Guess what? January is still part of a year. It's not that movies can't be released in January. So I'm not considering Surratt for my best of list this year, but it would be in the top 15 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
With a caveat to all our listeners, it's a movie you will hate while watching. And that in the drive home, or maybe a week later or 2 weeks later, in a quiet moment, you're going to find yourself that you haven't stopped thinking about that movie.
You're going to start thinking of like people to recommend this to. Like, this person would like it. My parents definitely would not like it.
And more, not really a word of advice, but really an ask to our friends over at Neon. Get in touch with our friends in immersive seating companies.
Yes.
Like D-Box, like Luma, like 40X. This is your art house immersive seating movie. Period. Full stop. End of story. If there is an art house movie where immersive seating is going to excel, it is Surratt. And it will make it that much more of an experience. Please get in touch with them, because this is going to be something that people talk about if it gets released properly in 2026.
Well, I also watched caught up with Spike Lee's Highest to Lowest, and that's all I'm going to say on that one. An A24.
Yeah,
A24 / Apple got a very, very, very token theatrical release.
Spike Lee came out in the media last week, actually, complaining, saying like, hey, this is my first movie with Denzel for a while. And he put it in how many screens?
What do you think was going to happen? Like, it's
again,
Apple.
You take the money, you take the consequences. I hate to say it, but here's hoping that a very good filmmaker like Spike Lee can find the support from our more traditional distributors to to make his next one. Let's move over now to the Thanksgiving box office results, guys, because we had a fantastic opening weekend from Zootopia 2. Now, it wasn't the record we saw with Moana 2, which just had a monster performance in 2024 that drove us to the highest earning Thanksgiving weekend of all time. We did not get there this year, but we didn't expect to. However, still a good number of records here, with Zootopia 2 making $98.8 million over the 3-day frame and $158 million over its domestic opening weekend. Chad, what are some of those domestic records that this movie notched?
It was the second highest Thanksgiving opening ever for the 3-day and 5-day, behind Moana 2. The second highest Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and Black Friday of all time. The third highest 3-day domestic opening in Walt Disney Animation Studios history. Disney holds now 9 of the top 10 Thanksgiving opening weekends of all time, and the top 8 Thanksgiving opening weekends.
Unbelievable figures here from the film. And internationally, it's also a very hot start for this movie, which will likely become the second Hollywood release of 2025 to hit $1 billion at the global box office. The other one being another Disney animated release, Lilo and Stitch, which came out over Memorial Day weekend. Rebecca, what are some of the figures behind that $401.5 million opening overseas weekend?
So as you say, Zootopia 2 wasn't able to sort of steal Moana 2's thunder domestically, but internationally, particularly in China, it broke a whole ton of records. Obviously, with these international markets, that is not a holiday weekend in anywhere other than the United States. So it didn't, it was just a normal weekend everywhere else this came out. It opened in either number 1 or number 1 MPA films, non-local films, in all the markets in which they released, except for the Netherlands and the Philippines. The highest animated opening day for an MPA title in France, Germany, Italy. The fourth highest international opening of all time. The top market by leaps and bounds was China, where it released 271.7 million. To contrast that.
Whoa, that's opening weekend.
That's opening weekend. Moana 2 was 15.3. This is I feel like we're seeing another Coco situation where an animated film from Disney just resonates.
$271.7 million opening in China alone.
Just in China, it is the highest grossing, the highest opening day ever for a U.S. animated film in China. It is the second best non-local opening of all time in China, behind Avengers Endgame, obviously another Disney title. It is the fifth highest grossing MPA release of all time in China, and it surpassed the total Qube of the first Zootopia in 5 days. So this is one that is absolutely resonating in China, particularly, though in other markets as well. The only market in which it has not yet been released is Japan. It's coming out there this weekend. 10th highest opening day of all time for a U.S. release. Zootopia 2.
Incredible. Just incredible figures there. And we also had some records from our friends over at the Major Circuits. Chad, AMC got in touch with us to share some of their numbers from Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, at AMC, it was the highest attended week of 2025 for a Monday through Sunday, both in the US and globally. They saw 6.9 million moviegoers at AMC or Odeon overseas from the 24th through the 30th, including 5.5 million of that in the US. It was also the busiest Wednesday and the busiest Friday of 2025 for admissions.
Incredible stats there. Regal, not far behind with their own set of records. Rebecca, what did those Regal benchmarks look like for the Thanksgiving frame?
They count over the 10-day Thanksgiving week, 1.1 million customers. Obviously, that's only where Regal operates in the U.S., not counting Cineworld over in Europe. They had the highest Thanksgiving food and beverage spend per patron in company history, up 9% from the same period last year. During that 10-day holiday opening weekend, 6 days during that period were in the list of the top 25 highest F&B spend per patron days of all time for the chain. And Black Friday was the best Friday of 2025 so far for the chain. Premium large formats accounted for 18.6% of the company's total box office during Thanksgiving week, 3.7% last year. Obviously, that's not Zootopia specific. Wicked definitely is maintaining an IMAX presence as well, which we saw in some numbers that we got from IMAX itself about the film's domestic, international, and global performance.
Yeah, IMAX also enjoying some really good records over the Thanksgiving period. We saw a $32.1 million IMAX haul over the 3-day global box office, going up to $40.8 million over the 5-day global box office in that premium format. But let's go back to one of those aspects that Rebecca was raising on those Regal benchmarks. They're looking at all of this through a 10-day basis, meaning the weekend that Wicked for Good opened through the Sunday of Thanksgiving, which I really think is the way we have to analyze the performance of this holiday period. Mm-hmm. Because when you have a movie as big as Wicked for Good come out on Friday before Thanksgiving, mm-hmm. and the demand for premium large format is as strong as it is, that will expand those ticket purchases through the entirety of the following week. So I like how Regal split it up here. And that will also give us some context to Wicked's performance, because after a very strong opening weekend where it was easily outpacing its predecessor, Wicked for Good dropped more than we expected in its sophomore frame and is now just slightly ahead of the first Wicked movie at the box office after its first 10 days of release. Right now, Wicked for Good is standing at $269 million after its first 10 days, whereas back in last year, after the first 10 days, Wicked Part 1 was at $263.2 million. So that huge lead it had from Wicked for Good having an opening weekend of $147 million compared to $112 million from the first Wicked, that lead shrinks down to $6 million after its sophomore frame, which tells us something. I think it's that I'm not sure that splitting the movie up in two created an abundance of new fans for the franchise or for the property. And B, what it did do is spread out the same core audience throughout 10 days instead of the first 3. Now, I think anticipation for that opening weekend grew because of the fans being activated as positively as they were for the first movie, which I think is why we saw such a big jump. But I wouldn't look at this quote-unquote big drop in week 2 for Wicked for Good as something negative. It stands aside what that original Wicked's performance was at the box office to where we are now, which is pretty much an on-par basis after 10 days in release. I think anyone is going to sign off on that. I think everyone's going to be happy, and I still think that universal strategy here in splitting the movie into two pays off. What I'm not convinced of, however, especially after that week 2 performance, is that there is an even bigger audience base for future Wicked movies. And this is the word for warning we're going to have, because we're seeing stories pop up, especially after that opening weekend, about, do you do another sequel, maybe another prequel?
I think that's the wrong lesson to take from Wicked success would be make more Wizard of Oz movies. I think it's take properties that have not yet been adapted for the screen, that have huge fan bases, that have been waiting for something, waiting for that adaptation, put the money behind it, put the marketing muscle behind it. Like that's the lesson I would take.
It's a good lesson, Rebecca. I mean, Chad, you're a huge fan of this property, of the Broadway musical. You were both convinced and very happy with what you saw in the 2-part movie adaptation. How would you feel like this getting the, let's say, the Hobbit treatment of trying to churn out another trilogy or another couple movies to make a couple more bucks?
I think that's where you have to be careful, because even with this core fan base that initially went out, supported the first movie, I felt like they did build an additional audience that maybe wasn't as familiar with the musical, but then it was front loaded this time, we're seeing. And I don't know if that same audience of core fans comes back for a new spinoff, prequel, something that maybe doesn't hold up to the quality that came from the stage.
Because they already had to kind of go beyond what was on the stage, as you've mentioned, I think, in last week's episode. The second act is only 45 minutes long, so you can make a 2.5 hour movie of that. Obviously, you have to add more material. I mean, clearly, it was not to the detriment of the box office of the film thus far, but I feel like you don't want to push it.
Yeah, because if you take just the things that they added and you're thinking, okay, there's going to be a third film of some kind that doesn't have any of the songs that people know, the storylines that people are excited to see adapted for the screen, what does that look like? I don't know.
And I will compare these last two movies, and I brought up this point, I think, a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, to a movie like Elf, which is a rep cinema institution at this point, and it's not even that old. Elf, you put it out in the holiday season, it's going to sell well. It's going to do really well between November and December on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, especially with like a $5 ticket if you can swing it.
Even though it's streaming on TV, like at any given time, like it's there.
Because people have this association with going to the movies around this time of year and watching this movie and loving it, and they want to have a little bit of that nostalgic experience going back. And I think that's what these two Wicked movies gave audiences. I don't think you retain that with a third one. I think you lose a lot of that the more of them you make. Just
you lose goodwill. I mean, you mentioned the Hobbit trilogy. I mean, I think
yeah. No, I mean, I think it'll lose fans. And it's interesting because, I once dated a girl back in my 20s whose family would watch all the extended editions of the Lord of the Rings movies on DVD, which is, as someone that does not like those movies, just my absolute nightmare. Because I love like 10-hour super movies. But if there's something I don't want to sit through is the extended edition of Lord of the Rings in sequential order over a long weekend, God help me. There's a reason why that audience still loves those movies and isn't going to that whatever ridiculous Bezos TV show on Amazon Prime is that nobody even remembers exists.
Costs like $1 billion. Right? I mean, I think audiences can smell a cash grab.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you keep the magic here, you'll have a rep title for years and decades to come around this time of year of people that are going to come back in costume, are going to come back for sing-along screenings, and these movies are going to have a very nice life. Why mess with that? Why mess with that? I don't know. I really don't want to see this get franchised. But all in all, it was a very good close to the month of November here at the box office. And that sets us off, I think, in a very good December 2025 as we keep on going for that $8.9 to $9 billion benchmark at the domestic market. We've got opening this weekend, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, right now tracking to an opening weekend range between $25 and $40 million. It'll likely become the best opening weekend for Blumhouse this year, in a year that's been a little bit challenging for the production house, but there's enough here from young audiences, I think, to deliver a solid weekend for them. I'm not sure, however, that it'll claim first place because Zootopia 2 is looking like a very solid hold in its second frame. And following this weekend, we've got a little bit of a quiet before the storm. The December 12th weekend is going to be the weakest of this month, with only Ella McKay from 20th Century Studios opening alongside the expansion of Hamnet. We are expecting single digits for both of those, but a longer theatrical run for Hamnet should Focus Features keep that in theaters in the run-up to the Academy Awards. I think word of mouth there is definitely going to be helping the Chloe Zhao picture. Going to the weekend of December 19th, this is where our discussion starts, guys, because we've got Avatar, Fire and Ash, pre-sales up and running. I'm not hearing world-beating pre-sales here. I'm hearing a very modest, let's say, $100 million plus base for opening weekend. Let's not forget the last one opened around $130 million back a couple of years ago. So this might end up coming under those grosses than we had with Avatar: The Way of Water. But ultimately, this is a movie that can make between $400 and $500 million domestically, $1 billion worldwide, and that can play well through the month of January. And the interesting part of that weekend is not only that Avatar is opening, but the fact that other studios aren't scared away by it. And this is what I really like about the release schedule this year. It's not the Avatar show. Because opening alongside Avatar Fire and Ash, you've got a really interesting adult skewing thriller in The Housemaid. I'm actually going to go check out that movie this week. And then you've got 2 animated movies for children, the SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants, which is, I think, going to be really good counter-programming to Avatar. And let's not forget the dark horse of the Christmas box office, David from Angel Studios. Now, David currently tracking in an opening weekend between $15 and $20 million, while SpongeBob tracking a little bit above that, between 25 and 35 million for that opening weekend range. And it's not just movies counter-programming the opening weekend of Avatar. Christmas Day, we've also got 3 releases targeting 3 different audience sectors. The remake nobody knew they ever wanted, but they're getting anyway. Comic duo remake of Anaconda with Jack Black and Paul Rudd, opening on Christmas Day, right now tracking between $20 and $30 million. And then for the folks like maybe ourselves that want to see something a little bit more grown up, we've got from A24 and director Josh Safdie, Marty Supreme, currently tracking to an opening weekend between $8 to $12 million. And then from Focus Features, Song Sung Blue, starring Kate Hudson and Hugh Jackman in a movie about a Neil Diamond cover band. That's currently tracking between $10 and $15 million. Now, of those 3, Chad and I have already seen and loved Marty Supreme. We'll be talking about that in more detail in a future episode of this podcast.
That's going to be our Christmas movie at the Poly household. I called my dad to kind of coordinate, like, hey, there are these movies coming out. Which one do you want to see? Told him there's one about ping pong. I texted him the trailer for it, and we're not a family, like we're not a big family of texters. I've never gotten a reply from him so quick. It's like, yes, this is it. This is it. But I am curious to see Anaconda. That for me can be an easy, like, January doldrums. Like, I like Jumanji. Jumanji was fun.
Oh, Anaconda is a 4-beer movie. Just make sure you've got a designated driver. That is, you go to a dine-in theater or something with alcohol service, that's 4 beers in 2 hours. You're going to come out happy. Very, very happy, guaranteed. I have to say it. I mean, I know we're going to go into detail probably next week, Chad. How good a time is Marty Supreme at the movies? Have you had a better time watching something this year?
It's a great time. I think, earlier I said Hamnet was my number 1. And I think because the hope for humanity in Hamnet, like, I love that projects like that are making it to theaters, but I also love that a film like Marty Supreme is out there because it's a blast.
It is. I mean, the titular character played by Timothée Chalamet coming out with another Christmas movie. I think we have to coin this term. It's another Timothée Chalamet-smas.
Well, because
we've had a Chalamet Christmas release, I think the last 3 years or something like that.
Yeah, we've got Wonka, and then we've had
Bob Dylan one. What is it?
Yeah, he's a Christmas boy.
Yeah. And Marty Supreme, he's just fantastic in that movie. We finally have, I think, of the iconic New York anti-heroes, probably among the best depicted on screen with Timothée Chalamet's performance.
He
a New Yorker
LaGuardia,
himself.
right?
He went to high school here.
He went to the Fame High School.
Yeah. Didn't Eric go there? Your partner? Yep. Yeah, it's different years, I'm assuming.
Him and Timothée Chalamet, and I think like Nicki Minaj, maybe.
Why not?
Sure.
Good trio. It's going to make one hell of a reunion. But no, I mean, Marty Supreme, I can't wait for audiences to watch it, to discover it.
Yeah. I'm pumped to watch it with my dad specifically.
It's
it's one that I would like, from what you guys have said about it, I'm confident that if I went and saw an advanced screening of it, that it's something that I wouldn't mind watching twice. But I want this, because we've seen some bad movies on Christmas as a family. Not to name any names, The Boys in the Boat, but.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a dad movie that everyone's going to have a good time with. And that's coming out on Christmas Day. So a lot of movies here in the weeks to come. But we've got our feature interview with Five Nights at Freddy's 2 director Emma Tammi coming up in the second half of this episode. Before we get there, we've got a sponsored segment with our friends from Qube Cinema. Cinema, Alan Christensen and Mark Waterston, going over some of the technologies they offer through CubeWire to help movies get some content up on their screens and help distributors reach more movie theaters. A vital, vital service here in the world of exhibition, especially with all this talk of consolidation floating around. This is one of those tools that'll help you deal better with the new realities of Hollywood that are coming up in 2026. That interview is coming up after the break.
CubeWire is a self-service platform to manage global theatrical distribution. CubeWire delivers content nationwide and has a growing electronic delivery network for even faster delivery. This network spans over 1,000 theaters and includes 15 of the largest theater chains in the United States. A simple user interface allows distributors to manage and deliver digital cinema packages and keys to theaters across the country. All exhibitors have a customized portal that lists all incoming DCPs and keys. Support is available 24/7 to assist with any issues throughout the process. With no fees for exhibitors and competitive rates to distributors, choose CubeWire for next-gen distribution services.
And we are back here on the Box Office Podcast with today's guests from Qube Cinema. We've got Alan Christensen and Mark Waterston joining us today to talk everything about some of the technology solutions that they offer. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
Great. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
And Alan, this is something that we've been chatting now for a couple of weeks now in getting you on the podcast, discussing some of the topics where Qube has come in, some of the investments that you guys have made in the industry to make the real potential of digital cinema possible. But let's start from the start here on your end. Alan, how would you describe one of your offerings, which is CubeWire?
Yeah, good question. CubeWire as a product within Qube Cinema is a dedicated service to the distribution side of the business. So we do a lot of work across mastering and delivering content to theaters. We handle the key processes, but we're also, as we've kind of gone over here, integrated into the theaters for delivering directly to them via our cloud-based network. That's kind of the crux of this vertical, is the distribution side.
Such an important part of the equation, especially as we are firmly now in the age and the era of digital cinema. Mark, you've been here with the company for a number of years. When did you first join Qube Cinema?
Almost 9 years ago, CubeWire had just been built and was starting to do cloud-based distribution around the world, primarily focused at first on Indian cinema, but now delivering Hollywood studio content to movie theaters around the world. And then in that 9 years, the product has grown quite a bit, and excited to be growing in a big way in North America this year.
Oh, we talk about growth. We can't forget about that big acquisition you guys made now a number of months back when you acquired Meta Media. I think a big piece of the puzzle here to complete the offering that you guys are proposing to the exhibition community. Could you guys go into some of that strategy on why this acquisition made sense for a company like Qube Cinema?
Yeah, that was a very exciting acquisition for the company. CubeWire as a brand has built a beautiful global network and infrastructure to support customers out of India as well as the Hollywood majors. You know, all studios and IMAX and other customers support that global network. Domestically, Qube's always been focused on foreign language product. Metamedia's footprint into the theaters was an opportunity through that acquisition to build out more network domestically and focus more on providing a flexible solution to the customers domestically, including a lot of the independents that just need that flexibility on an electronic or cloud-based network.
Well, let's go a little bit into those needs in terms of what exhibitors are looking for, some of the solutions that they can count on when working with you guys. Why is this solution the right one for exhibitors today?
I mean, for one, we do all of this at no cost to the exhibitor. We install a server and a dedicated internet connection, usually 5G actually, which is very easy for the cinema to install. It doesn't interact with their, mall or landlord, and they can just plug it in and they're good to go. So that's the big benefit to exhibition, because right now they're paying other service providers like a landing fee for every time a distributor sends them a movie.
And we know how much those costs can add up. And right now, as we're still trying to get our feet back under us in the box office recovery, it's important to make sure that there's as little friction as possible. Now, this doesn't just work between you guys and the exhibitor. Alan, you also have some benefits here for distributors to start working with your technology.
Yeah, I think, in the current landscape, cost is always a factor, right? Everyone's always interested in the bottom line. I think Qube, as a technology provider, a very innovative, company in the space, we've been able to lower the cost for the distribution model, right? So we're offering better rates to the distributors. I think that's a major benefit. Our portal that we have for people to book content directly with us is free to our customers. It integrates with all the booking platforms that's out there in the marketplace. And I think on the exhibitor side as well, the exhibitors have access to their version of that portal where they can also see content coming to them and interact with our support teams and so on and so forth. So just bridging the gap between exhibition and distribution is one of the things I think that Qube also really brings to the table.
Now, one of the key points here that we've been raising in this conversation is that savings, that cost optimization of working with you guys over at Qube. You both have a long number of years working in this industry, working in companies like this, in some cases competitors, working with major studios, with independents. I am curious in terms of what has changed in terms of the business conditions so Qube can offer free deliveries for exhibitors and, let's say, more cost-effective rates for the distributors.
Yeah, of course. That's the question we get a lot. I mean, the short answer is technology, right? Satellite is a way more expensive piece of equipment that needs to be installed at every theater. Our solution is, a fraction of that cost. Additionally, Qube is a technology company. We have our own group of engineers who have developed this product, so we're not paying a third party to license or modify the product. So yeah, and those sorts of savings is how we're able to do this effectively.
Now, I mentioned this a little bit ago, the term that you guys have had a number of experience, not only working in this company, with other vendors in the space. We know it's very competitive selecting the right partner to do this job for you, not only as a distributor, but for exhibitors as well. Let's talk about Qube specifically. What makes Qube different than the other offerings that an exhibitor could go with?
From an exhibitor perspective, I think it is that integration directly with the distributor, the content flow, and just having access to the data. That is one thing that I think sets us apart, other than the cost. As technology continues to advance and the cost of services comes down, I think we'll continue to focus on just providing the best solutions out there at the most affordable rates to everyone. And I think that is interesting. And, if I can speak to the domestic market, you've mentioned, Mark and I both have a history in industry, and, Qube specifically is very focused on the storytelling, very focused on the cinematic experience. The company is dedicated to the customers, both in exhibition and distribution. Domestically, there hasn't really been a lot of options, I should say. It's been a pretty closed off market, whereas the rest of the world, I feel like there's a lot more vendor and activity going on, which drives competition in a healthy way. It supports cost savings, it supports technology advancements, it supports all the things that are beneficial to both the distributor and the exhibitor customers. So I think that's what Qube's bringing to the table domestically.
If I may, Qube Wire is not the only service that Qube sells, right? We're a big company, over 1,000 employees, 40 years of history. We do virtual production. We run an advertising network like Screen Vision or NCM, right? So Qube Wire is just one of the many offerings, and we are a profitable, successful company, and we continue to be.
It's so important, I think, as you guys mentioned, looking at what options there are out there, the alternatives you have at hand, especially today where consolidation, unfortunately, is top of mind for a lot of studios and exhibitors working today. And having that option for vendors is super important. So let's go into maybe some of the nuts and bolts that go into this technology so we can dive down on really what specifically Qube Wire can bring to the table in terms of a site. Because my first question related to that is if this solution is fixed to a single auditorium, and how does it interface with other existing theater equipment you might have across your sites?
Right. So, no, it's not for a specific auditorium. Our server, which we call a wire tap, Qube Wire Theater Appliance, it networks to the theater's TMS. And then from there, the content can be sent to all of the theater screens. But we deliver feature content, trailers, advertising, KDMs, any digital cinema assets we deliver across this platform.
Now, the follow-up question I have on here comes from personal experience. Holidays are coming up, and I'm dreading building this playhouse for my 2-year-old. How do you guys help out in installation? Is this a self-installed solution, or are we going to have some headaches here?
It is self-installed. It comes in a box with all the equipment, a router for the 5G connection, the server itself, and the cables to connect it. We have a 24/7 support center too that's available to assist. And of course, once the connection's made, we log in, check the speed of the connection, send some test content, and then map it. And then it's ready to go. So usually this is taking an hour, right? And the big chains like AMC, Regal, and Cinemark, of course, they have huge technical operations teams that assist with this and manage it. But even the smaller cinemas are able to do this with little to no support from us at all.
Oh, that's so important, especially as we get into these months and a year in 2026 where there's going to be so many different events, so many different sort of programming opportunities around the corner to take advantage of. It's not that big headache that you have to close your site or be offline for a number of hours. 1 hour and you're pretty much up and running here.
Correct.
Yeah, and we also don't want to add resources to the exhibitor side, right? Our goal is to streamline the process, and the more we can do to have that system plug and play per se, that's kind of what we look at is the efficiencies of that process.
Well, let's talk about some of the other initiatives that Qube Wire right now is offering the market. Can we go into what other aspects about this product can help exhibitors moving forward?
Yeah, on top of what we currently do, we're handling theatrical features, trailers, keys. There's some advertising opportunities that we're working on too. I think the newest addition that we can share maybe now is the live wire, right? We're about to launch our live event solution. That'll be coming to market pretty soon. We ran our first event last weekend. It was a great success. It was across a limited run of theaters, and that will be scaling across the Qube Wire network. Qube Wire currently has over 1,000 theaters deployed domestically, with another 300 to 400 scheduled for install. So our network's growing rapidly. Our live event solution will be offered as wide as humanly possible. We're going to try and hit all those theaters if we can. So I think that's another value add that brings Q&A opportunities for directors, producers, at film screenings for the independents, just empowering that model, or just running live events, or whether it's an opera, a soccer match, or anything like that. We're excited to enter that space and continue to offer revenue opportunities and marketing opportunities to our customers, both exhibition and distribution.
And we can't stress that enough. We saw the impact that event cinema had this year on quiet weekends, where you have a 2-day, 3-day run on a quiet weekend that really can make our months in some cases, like we saw back in September, like we saw in October. And I'm warning exhibition already. You look at that calendar next year, first quarter of 26 and the August, September, October period of the same year of 2026 look very similar. I think it's going to be a prime opportunity for event cinema providers to step up and to have this technology ready to go in your theaters. I think will give you a great advantage. Let's not forget some of the sporting events that are currently being developed to be put on the big screen next year in 2026. One other aspect of Qube Wire that I do want to touch on has to do with your support for, let's say, smaller distributors to get their content out there. Right now, we're in a context where we're seeing every major studio out there produce fewer and fewer films than they did in the pre-pandemic period. So it's a significantly fewer number of films in the post-2020 era than we had pre-2020. that gives a lot of opportunity, paired with the end of the virtual print fee model, with the VPFs being gone, for independents to come in, for smaller distributors to come in and get Auditorium 6 in your theater, an auditorium that used to not be available. We see sometimes a big drop off from week 1 to week 2, where, yeah, you can come and give a couple of auditoriums to quote unquote smaller distributors. And this is where CubeWire for distributors can really be a very helpful tool to scale that release.
I'm glad you see that, Daniel. That's really another reason why it made sense to go into the market at this point, right? Is that there's that segment of the market wasn't being served correctly, right? Wasn't enough bandwidth on the satellite to get all of those smaller films through. And CubeWire was really built on a self-service model, and we're happy to support all those smaller distributors and get their content to screens. So yes, that's exactly what we're trying to do, and support those. Of course, the major studios as well, but these people who may not have been getting the support they need.
It's really a growth area in this industry, guys. And I'm loving the fact that you guys can come in and help that side of the industry, because what we used to call specialty and boutique distributors are now going wide with their films, right? And we're getting some more surprising folks coming in and landing a spot in the top 10 box office. You don't get there without the right partnerships, without the right know-how, without the right experience. And it's fantastic to see this offering coming in and really stepping up for that side of the community.
No, it's awesome. And Mark nailed it, right? We're a self-service platform, but I think one of the coolest things here is, as you've rightfully pointed out, the model's changing, right? The independents, the event cinema companies, like there's more opportunity and space in the market than ever before, and everyone's trying to figure out how to optimize and monetize that, right? Qube is so built for that model, right? We consolidate for the independents. We're infrastructure. We do everything we can to help our customers optimize their business, get the widest footprint they can at the most cost-effective rate, save on their P&A, help them get to market, and everything without them having to resource, to the max to get there. We're providing those resources to them as best as we can through technology. And Qube's done an amazing job with that over the years. And, that's why the company exists. And that's why we're so incredibly healthy financially today.
Well, it's great to hear that from you guys. And to learn more about your offerings, your products, where can our listeners find you?
Sales at cubecinema.com or cubewire.com, or reach out to Alan and I via LinkedIn, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Absolutely.
Alan, Mark, thank you so much for joining us, and great having you here on the Box Office Podcast.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
And a big thank you to Alan and Mark for joining us on the podcast here. Coming up next is Rebecca Pauley's interview with Five Nights at Freddy's 2 director Emma Tammi. That's coming up after this quick break.
Imagine a world where your cinema's digital experience is as unforgettable as the movies you show. At Box Office, we strive to make that world a reality. We offer innovative solutions like custom-built websites, mobile apps, and user-friendly ticketing pages, crafted to meet the unique needs of cinemas. It's all about enhancing customer loyalty and making booking a breeze. Take your cinema's online experience to the next level with Boost. Contact us today at sales@boxoffice.com to learn more.
And I am joined here on the Box Office Podcast by Emma Tammi, director of Five Nights at Freddy's and its sequel, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, out this weekend from Universal. Emma, thanks so much for speaking with me this afternoon. I want to start by asking you about the opening weekend of the first film back in 2023. It definitely blew all predictions out of the water with that $80 million opening weekend. It was a very pleasant surprise for the industry. What was that weekend like for you, seeing those numbers come in?
It was really surreal and pretty magical as well. The movie came out while we were still in the wake of some of the writer and actor strikes. I believe the writing strike maybe had lifted at that point, but the actor strike had not. And we didn't have a premiere with the cast or anything like that. And I think part of what felt surreal about it was like kind of experiencing it almost just as the general, as a general audience member. Like I was just going to see it with the fans at my local AMC, at my local independent cinema, I think I went to a different theater each day that weekend. And it was just kind of like gut checking that reading what was happening at the box office was like real. And then alongside the numbers, just finally getting to feel how the audience was engaging with the material, which in this case is really active and loud and, specific. It's not every day that you sit through a film and you want people to talk through it. And in this case, you do, like, the fan base watching the film really does like chat with each other throughout the film, and it's like the best case scenario because it's really showing their engagement and excitement, and that they're picking up on Easter eggs and excited about things that we were hoping they'd be excited about. So it was a surreal weekend, and it was very exciting, I would say, both just emotionally and creatively, but also obviously in terms of how the numbers were coming in.
I mean, around that time, we box office, we work kind of on the cinema side of things. Our primary audience is like cinema owners and people in that space, and like everybody around that time coming out of COVID and the strikes and the slate, it was like, oh my God, streaming. If something premieres on streaming, then it's not a factor theatrically. Nobody's going to come see it in theaters. And you proved that wrong, and you proved that, like, no, young Gen Z, like, they will come out for the right movie because they wanted it to be communal.
That's totally accurate. I think there's something particularly exhilarating about being the underdog coming in. Like, as you said, we kind of had a lot of factors that people perceived as stacked against us, the day and date of it all, the fact that this movie was geared towards an audience, Gen Z audience, that had not been showing up for theatrical historically as much. To be able to kind of still succeed in the wake of that, I think felt extra gratifying, and also just like a win for movies. And I still feel this way every time something does well at the box office. I'm just like so glad that, like, it's bolstering the theaters, and it really feels like, to a degree right now, like we're all in this together to try to keep this amazing tradition going of going to see films together and see them in large format and in a dark theater with fantastic sound. And, streaming is amazing and it's changed everything, but going to the cinema opening weekend is not a tradition that I want to lose, and I don't think most people want to lose. So reinvigorating that for Gen Z as something that they could be excited about was incredible.
It's like in the last few years, like the video game movie was like, that was considered a cursed subgenre for so long.
Yeah.
And now between that and like Mario and Minecraft, with audiences like going nuts for the chicken jockey, like leading into the interactive part of it. Video games are interactive. They want you to be involved and to react, with the surroundings. So like, just feels really like neat to see that.
Totally. And I think, it'll keep evolving and changing, but, with on the TV side with The Last of Us, and I just, there's been so many different ways that recently I feel like some video games have been interpreted successfully into long form narrative film and television that I'm just very excited about. And it's really a testament to the fan bases, but those fan bases can be, also very critical and rightly so of the thing that there is so beloved to them. So you never know. You go in obviously hoping and trying to hit the mark, but it can be really divisive. So the fact that this fan base embraced it so wholeheartedly and was, I really felt like on all the feedback, not only were they so enthusiastic, but they were so like just gracious. They were so thankful that this adaptation had happened because so many of them had wanted it for so long. So again, just felt like very fortunate to be a part of that, because to be able to deliver to a big audience like that, something that they've been wanting, is again, just not something that you get to do every day as a filmmaker.
How was working with animatronics this time around? Because you have a bigger scope, which I imagine, seeing the animatronics in all these different settings, that just seems really difficult to me.
Yeah.
First one. Yeah.
Yeah. It was fantastic. I mean, we had learned a lot in the first movie with the animatronics that we had built, and, learned how to how to move and kind of like eke personality out of, and all these amazing things that our crew and our puppeteers and our, stunt folks like all collaborated to make special. But on this one, we were like more than tripling what we had worked with on the first one. And it was a huge build for Henson's Creature Shop, which did an incredible job. And Robert Bennett, our lead designer, just knocked it out of the park. And they're stunning. They're stunning to look at. They all needed to be kind of reimagined in terms of how they move and how they're puppeteered. So that was a huge challenge, but also very exciting that we were able to take kind of the toolkit that we had from movie one and figure out how to apply that, but then expand it and adapt. And it was really wild. One of the most complicated animatronics to operate, I think, had about 13 people on it at any given moment when we were in kind of like a full body wide shot. So it was a massive team effort, and everyone was so, amped on them because they just looked amazing. And yeah, it was a really fun aspect of the shoot this time around.
And I mean, it's gonna look so good on the big screen when it's practical versus, you look at something like Jurassic Park and that the practical ages beautifully on that, whereas some of the visual effects on these other movies from that era just look like so bad now.
Yeah, it felt really right to approach this, both the first movie and this one, as practically as we could. It felt right for the time period of the movie. It felt right for, what these animatronics are, which are kind of imperfect, scary, wonderful, bizarre things that you might have seen as a kid going to one of, an entertainment pizzeria type place. So everything about that. And in terms of also interacting with the cast and capturing a really live and spontaneous moment, for all those reasons, it felt like we wanted to do as much practical as possible, just in terms of approach. And of course, actually building them was one of the most fun parts of the whole process. So I'm so glad we didn't shortchange ourselves by not having that element.
Yeah, I mean, working with the Henson Creature Shop, I mean, that must just be like an absolute dream.
Total dream. I still pinch myself every day because of it. I asked our one of our sound designers to go there the other day to capture some just some practical sounds from the animatronics that were happened to be at the shop while we were still doing our sound mix. And I said, it's going to be the best field trip of your life to go to the creature workshop. And he came back and he was like, just floored, and said it was in fact one of the best experiences of his life. And I feel that way every time I go. It never gets old. I'm forever in awe of what they do and how special that place is.
I'm like, they'd have to drag me out. I'd stay there. And then maybe that would be creepy. So
yeah, exactly. But that's fun too.
To switch gears a little bit, our target audience is movie theater people who love cinemas, love the cinema experience. I think you grew up in New York City.
I did.
Did you go to the movies a lot? What were your theaters that you would go to?
All the time. Some of the theaters by my house, I grew up on the Upper West Side, and some of the theaters by my house are no longer there. The AMC on 68th Street, I think that opened when I was in high school or middle school. So I definitely went to that one, and that one's still there. But, the Lincoln Center cinemas that were showing more independent fare were a favorite. There was a small cinema a couple blocks from my house called Metro. But I was so lucky to be able to take advantage of like series happening even at like museums and stuff. Like I remember going to a Charlie Chaplin series with my dad, Kurosawa series. Like I just felt very exposed to some really fantastic filmmakers early on the big screen, which was so cool. Film Forum's one of my favorite theaters in New York, the Ziegfeld. It's such a treasure trove of great theaters there. That being said, when I moved to LA and went to the ArcLight for the first time, I was like, this is a great town for seeing movies. And of course it still is, even though the ArcLight is sadly not there anymore. But yeah, I think exposure to that at an early age was like one of my favorite things about growing up in New York.
Are there any particular movie-going experiences from your childhood that you remember that pop out as something that set you on your path to becoming a filmmaker? Or just anything that's like first movie you remember seeing? Like, I just love to hear about those early screenings that really stick with you because they are in a theater, because it is like associated with the smell and the food and everything.
Totally. I remember going to see Lawrence of Arabia probably when I was like around 12 or something with my dad. And that is one of his favorite films. So I think to be able to experience for the first time a film that my dad had seen 100 times and was his absolute all-time favorite was like just this very special shared moment. And obviously the film itself blew my mind, but to see it through my own like fresh lens, but then to see it through his very seasoned eyes and adoration was really cool.
And that was Emma Tammi, director of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, coming out from Universal Pictures this weekend. You heard in that interview my colleague, Rebecca Pauley, and before then, you heard some insights from my colleague, Chad Kennard, in the news segment. On behalf of everyone here at Box Office Pro, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.